This is the Dollemore Daily.
Hi, I'm Mike Greiner from the Democratic Activist Channel, sitting in for Jesse today as he's moving from California to D.C. My sympathies. Hopefully he's not stuck in that 24-hour traffic jam. But even while Jesse's moving, the news never stops, so let's talk about politics. And today, the day before the January 6th anniversary, we have news about Trump, Hannity, and Gosar. Oh my. So let's get started. Donald Trump, the big news today, is that he canceled his news conference that he had scheduled for January 6th. Somehow, apparently, he thought that was a good idea to celebrate the anniversary of the insurrection at the Capitol that he caused. Apparently, he, in typical Trump fashion, simply scheduled it without a plan just because he decided to on a lark. Apparently, his allies were surprised at how many reporters planned on attending. And they suddenly realized that this might not be such a good look 1 year after the insurrection at the Capitol to have Trump going in complaining about everybody else. I mean, you can imagine the questions the reporters would be asking about what did you know and when did you know it when it came to the January 6th insurrection? And why did he take so long to respond? Aside from the fact that you never know what Donald Trump's going to say when you put him in front of the media, he actually faces legitimate legal liability here potentially, and things he say in this press conference could be used against him in that way. So when he canceled the event, Trump said that instead, he's going to be discussing these issues at a rally on January 15th in Arizona, which he says it will be a big crowd. We'll see. But something tells me that investigators from the January 6th Commission and hopefully the Department of Justice will be recording what Trump says at this rally because, again, you never know what Trump's going to say when he goes off script. And, of course, as always, the reason he had to cancel this event is not at all his fault, it's everybody else's fault. Imagine that. Let me just read the quote. This is a classic. In light of the total bias and dishonesty of the January 6th Unselect Committee of Democrats, 2 failed Republicans, and the fake news media, I am canceling the January 6th press conference at Mar-a-Lago on Thursday, and instead will discuss many of these important topics at my rally on Saturday, January 15th in Arizona. It will be a big crowd. I mean, that one statement in itself, how many insults can you fit into one sentence, along with self-glorification and his sense of entitlement and grievance, all in one sentence? It's actually a pretty impressive job there. Well, I'm sure on January 6th, all of us will be thinking of poor Donald Trump not able to hold his press conference because the mean news media might have asked him some tough questions there. Oh my. And in news about another one of our MAGA superstars, we have the January 6th Select Committee requesting information from Sean Hannity, the Fox News talking head. Hannity from day one has been nothing more than a spokesperson parroting the Trump line. If you want to know what Donald Trump's thinking, if he ever is thinking, then you just need to turn on Sean Hannity to find out. Not surprisingly, it turns out that Hannity was talking directly with Trump while the insurrection was going on. And that's something of particular interest to the committee because what they're trying to do is assess Trump's state of mind at the time. They're trying to get at what his intent was. Now, intent matters because that can be a basis for criminal liability. And so if Hannity is able to bring some light to that and make clear that Trump intended to allow the protests to go forward, and that's why he was delaying his response, asking people not to protest, then that might add fuel to the fire of the committee's investigation into Trump. Now, it's worth noting that this was not a subpoena. This was simply a letter to Hannity asking for his voluntary cooperation, and I'm sure he'll get right on board with that. His attorney, Jay Sekulow, seemed to imply that Hannity was not going to cooperate, saying that this raises important First Amendment implications. The problem here, though, is that the committee is not asking about things that he was reporting on Fox News. They are not asking about his political opinions. In fact, their letter is quite clear on both those points. Instead, they are looking for specific conversations between him and Trump, things that were not reported on. And it's worthy of note that it's only things that are reported on that are protected by the First Amendment. So as long as the committee steers clear of that, I don't think First Amendment issues are going to be a problem. The basis for this request, apparently, is that the committee, which has a whole host of texts from former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, saw that a number of these texts are from and to Sean Hannity. So apparently, in addition to communicating directly with Trump, he was also communicating directly with Meadows. In other words, as this kitchen cabinet of Trump supporters was planning the insurrection and the failed coup, Sean Hannity was right in the middle of it all. He's not some objective reporter telling the public what's going on. He's actually a participant in what's actually happening. As such, again, his activities would not be protected by the First Amendment. Now, it's worth noting, of course, that Mark Meadows has defied a subpoena from the committee, and the committee has referred that over to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. The Department of Justice, as of yet, has not moved forward with any prosecution of Meadows, which probably only gives Hannity even more license to simply ignore this request, which is what I totally expect is going to happen. Nevertheless, this new information just sheds more light on the intimate role that Fox News has played in the Trump administration. This is not some objective news source that reports fairly as they claim to. This is actually simply an arm of the MAGA crowd of the Republican Party. Nothing more, nothing less. Continuing on with our cast of characters on this January 6th special, we have Arizona Representative Paul Gosar's brothers apologizing for his, quote, despicable comments. Gosar has been taking a leading role in downplaying the deadly violence in the Capitol riot on January 6th, but yet at the same time as he's downplaying the behavior of the insurrectionists, he's lionizing the people who are involved in the attack. For example, he claims that Ashley Babbitt, the pro-Trump rioter who was killed in the protest as she was trying to invade the Capitol, he claims that she was executed by Capitol Police. Now, Gosar's brothers, who call themselves the sane members of the family, are apologizing for him, comparing him unfavorably to Marjorie Taylor Greene. They say that Gosar knows better and that he is simply engaging in a disingenuous fundraising strategy aimed at appealing to the most extreme elements of the MAGA crowd. Gosar's brother, Tim, says he supports a full and thorough investigation into the attack and has said that his brother should be held accountable for any role he may have played, which could be, by the way, significant. So we'll see what happens there. One final note on this January 6th special is just an update on the public opinion regarding the January 6th protests. And there's some interesting data to come out of a recent Morning Consult poll. For example, among Republicans only, 47% say it was a legitimate protest, while at the same time, 62% of Republicans, again, of Republicans only, call it a riot. Now, I don't know how they can view it as a legitimate protest and a riot. We'll have to see that on how that works out. Maybe what we ought to do right now is take a minute to review a little bit of video as to what happened on January 6th to make a short assessment as to whether it was a legitimate protest or a riot. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that it's a riot. By the way, that poll found that overall, 72% of Americans find the events on January 6th were a riot, and 56% of Americans called it an insurrection, only 33% calling it a legitimate protest. And in one final interesting data point, I think it's worth noting that not all Republicans are crazy. Of course, we have the very prominent example of Liz Cheney taking the leadership role on the committee. But what's more is we find that 40% of Republicans, according to this poll, say they either strongly support or somewhat support the January 6th Select Committee. Now, of course, this Select Committee, which has been called the Unselect Committee of Democrats to Failed Republicans by Donald Trump, has become the target for many Republicans. And as such, I think it's interesting to note how the Republican faithful really aren't necessarily on board with those attacks. Well, again, we'll have to see how this all shakes out, but personally, I would prefer that on this anniversary of January 6th, we remember the Capitol police officers, many of whom were injured and some of whom died defending the Capitol from this insurrection. They're the true heroes here, and that's what I think most Americans should remember. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments down below. And if you could check out my channel, Democratic Activist, we'll also link to that down below. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.